I started having an out of body experience. And I started feeling myself slowly lifting out of my body. And I started seeing 4 people in silhouette. And I'm thinking, okay, well, this is nice. I see these people. I don't know who they are. It must be in my imagination. Until, of course, the person all the way on the right hand side shot a beam of energy right through my chest, out through my back that I could feel physically. I'm like, oh, wow. You mean I'm not asleep? And at that point, that's when I was taken completely out of my body. Recently, I've been getting so many requests and asking basically, how do I connect with my spirit guides? How do I get in contact with spirit? How did you learn how to get in contact with spirit? Where did you start? And all these very fundamental questions, which are very understandable because I've been there and I totally get it. And it seems to be getting to a point now where we're in a world that's so topsy-turvy, and there seems to be so much change going on and so much concern and worry, which also is very understandable, that people seem to be reaching beyond themselves. They're looking for answers to either something greater than them, larger than them, quote unquote, out there, and they're searching for something that will help them. And it seems like now is the perfect time to start discussing this. As I said, so many people have been asking about this, and this really seems to be very timely. So let me go back to my experience. If you remember, I came from a very materialist background. I used to be an analyst on Wall Street, so you can't really get much more materialistic than that. I mean, I was, in the grind, pulling my 90-hour weeks, going absolutely crazy. I was going to the point where I was, taking out my stress on my friends and family. And I knew I had to find a way to decompress, to remove that stress because it was just getting to be too much. And I searched high and low, but I was still in this mindset of it's got to be real. I got to put my hands on it. I got to be able to see it. And so when I stumbled across these ideas of meditation, to me, it was a foreign concept. I was like, wait a second, more meditation? Don't I have to go up to the Himalayas and, sit there for years and all this? And I just couldn't understand the concept. But one day I ran across a meditation track, an audio track that really, I guess, resonated with me. It was something that didn't have an agenda. It was something that was very calm and peaceful and enjoyable to listen to. And so I began to listen to it on a pretty regular basis. I'm like, okay, I can get used to this. This is okay. I didn't have any expectations. I just was listening to it because I enjoyed the sound, and I listened to it because I enjoyed the experience of just sort of relaxing. And that was definitely what I needed at the time. But what I wound up doing is I would listen to this short meditation, and that's kind of the key, is that I wasn't having any expectations, and I also wasn't trying to do it for a long time. I was probably doing it for maybe 10 minutes at a time. It was a guided meditation, and I would do this before work. So that way I could be really relaxed going into work, and I was feeling very good. So I wound up doing this because it was so enjoyable. I wound up doing this every day, and nobody was telling me to do it every day. Nobody was telling me to do this for 10 minutes. The track was only 10 minutes long, but I enjoyed it so much that I kept on listening to it every day. I'm like, this is great. So I would listen to it every day, but I didn't quite realize how addicted I was because I wound up listening to it for basically 12 months straight. And there's something about 12 months that when you listen to meditation and you sit in meditation for 12 months, there's something that basically you have passed a threshold. You've enabled your loud, obnoxious, conscious mind, that ego mind that's always chattering away, always yapping and telling you things are bad, that you got to improve and all this kind of stuff. That kind of goes to the sidelines. That kind of gets chilled. It kind of gets relaxed, and you're like, okay, good. You're you've been pushed to the side. And so in this meditation, I had been doing this for 12 months. And so as some people know, I was in my relaxed chair on one Saturday morning, listening to this meditation, probably 30 minutes in, and I started having an out of body experience. At the time, I was closing my eyes, just listening to the track, and I started feeling myself slowly lifting out of my body. And I started seeing four people in silhouette or this foggy forms. And for some reason, and in my mind's eye, of course, I'm seeing these four people, and for some reason, I recognize them. I don't really know why I recognize them, but I felt like I knew them for some reason. And I'm thinking, okay, well, this is nice. I see these people. I don't know who they are. It must be in my imagination. Until, of course, the person all the way on the right hand side shot a beam of energy right through my chest, out through my back that I could feel physically. And that shocked me. I'm like, oh, wow. You mean I'm not asleep? What is going on here? Because I'm feeling this thing going on in the physical. And at that point, that's when I was taken completely out of my body, and I wound up in this place of what you might refer to as sort of like this beautiful outer space existence where I was somehow just connected to everything in existence. I kind of felt like this thread that was part of a giant tapestry that had no end. And we were all connected. We were all part of the same thing. And for some reason, I felt this unity of everything around me. And I also began to encounter this feeling that I could only describe as unconditional love. And those words don't even begin to describe it, because the human word love is kind of like the 1% of the iceberg that you see floating above the water. This was the other 99% of the iceberg that you can't see below the water. And it was so powerful, so overwhelming. I was just dumbstruck. I didn't know what to do. And it just kept on making me feel complete divine love, unconditional love, overwhelming, to the point where I had tears coming down my face. And this awareness of somehow I was perfect. Of course, at the time, I refused to accept that. I'm like, no. You really don't know what I've done in life. I am not perfect. I am the opposite of perfect. I am a horrible person, et cetera, et cetera. But I just kept on saying, you're perfect as you are. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. You are perfect. You're exactly how you're supposed to be. And I couldn't accept it, but I just kept on saying that. And then eventually I came out, and that's when I started having all these spiritual experiences, which by now many of you probably already know. And that's how I, became a medium. And that's how I really started to really work with spirit and enable spirit to communicate with other people. The reason I bring that up is that it's so true that anybody can sit in meditation and learn to open themselves up. People can sit in meditation. You can learn to relax the mind. You can learn to push aside and quiet the ego mind, the conscious mind, that loud analytical mind. You can learn to quiet it down. And as you learn to quiet down that ego mind, you begin to open up this place of silence. Another one of the reasons actually that there's a meditation called sitting in the silence. You learn to sit in a state of silence. And as you sit in the state of silence, you begin to open up what you can only say is a channel and an opportunity for spirit to begin to connect with you. Because all the time, if our mind is constantly chattering away a mile a minute, and it doesn't have a chance to let any other conversation come in, you're going to miss it. So if you give the mind pause, let it kind of go off to the side, you go off into this beautiful dreamlike state, sort of a daydream, perhaps, if you want to think about it that way. And you go into the state of quiet where you let your thoughts just pause for a while. They're not going to go away completely. Otherwise, you wouldn't be alive. But just allow the thoughts to pause for a while. Maybe you will have thoughts. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's why perhaps guided meditations and music can be so powerful, because you're focused on that music. Maybe you're focused on a breath. But whatever it is, you're focused on something else that takes your attention away from these mind thoughts that are constantly jarring you. And you get into this place of being nice and calm and quiet. And as you sit in the quiet, you begin to become aware of things outside your regular body, outside of your regular awareness that you might not have recognized before. You start to either feel things or hear things, and maybe at first you're not quite sure what they are. Maybe you're thinking, that must be my imagination. Gee, I'm quite creative, aren't I? But you've got to learn to trust what you're getting. You've got to learn to surrender to what it is that you're receiving. When you begin to surrender everything, surrender yourself to everything that you're receiving, that's when the magic happens. What I always tell my mediumship students is the two most important words in mediumship are trust and surrender. Why trust and surrender? Let's look at it. Your analytical mind, your logical mind wants to make sure that you're not fooling yourself and that you have to have everything be concrete and it has to be 100% accurate because it's the ego's job to protect you and defend you. So it's not going to let anything fool you. So it's going to make sure that anything that's coming in passes its filter. Problem is, the ego mind is so defensive, it prevents anything that you're not used to from coming in, because we all live in this fishbowl of a world and we can't see beyond just what's physically there. If we allow ourselves to think beyond what is physically there, if we close our eyes and then begin to imagine, even if you want to think of yourself, just imagining yourself in space or some other place, you can go there. The ego mind is not there. So just allow your ego mind, just tell your ego mind for a minute to, give me 10 minutes, give me 15 minutes. I want to relax. And, when you're daydreaming, for example, let's go back to fifth grade. When you're, in the classroom, it's springtime, you're looking out the window and you're daydreaming about, where you want to be that afternoon. You're in the playground. Maybe you're sitting in the grass. You're just out there having a ball, having so much fun, and you're imagining yourself. You see the grass, you see the trees, you see yourself playing. You're like, oh, it's wonderful. Have you noticed that your mind is out there? And so too are you. You're suddenly out there on the grass, on the field, in the playground. Your body may physically be in the classroom, but you're not in the classroom. You're out in the grass. So much so that the teacher has to yell at you several times to bring you back. I know that happened to me a lot. I was always looking out the window going, oh, I was never paying attention. Of course, teachers got rather annoyed by that. But I'm sure that there are a lot of people who had that experience where they're just looking out the window going, I can't wait to get out of here. Oh, gosh, look at those. You're out there. And when you allow yourself to do that, you check out. You're gone. Your mind is not in the body anymore. You're out there. Same thing can happen when you're driving, for example. Let's say you've got this really long drive. You kind of check out. 30 minutes may go by and you're like, wait a second. I'm in another state. Where'd all the time go? You lose track of time. That's when you're checking out. So that's the way meditation can work. You can be listening to the meditation or in your meditation, but you're checked out and time just no longer exists. That's why Spirit says time doesn't really exist. Time is a man-made construct based on the relativity and the distance between us and the sun and the way the earth is spinning. It's just something that so we can keep track of things. There is no such thing as time in outer space. It's meaningless. It's just something that we made up here on the earth so we can, keep track of stuff. So the point of this is that, you really want to have the ability to give yourself time to meditate. And the more that you meditate, the more you'll be able to connect with Spirit. And everybody thinks, oh, well, I can't do that. You got to be born to connect with Spirit. You got to have special abilities. Well, I'm here to tell you absolutely not. Everybody has the ability. Everybody has psychic senses, non-physical senses lying in their hind brain that are just lying dormant. We all have them. It's just a question that we don't use them because they're all these non-physical senses we had before we had speech, before we had a forebrain hundreds of thousands of years ago, whether we were Cro-Magnon or whatever evolutionary state humanity was at that point, we relied on these non-physical senses to stay alive. It's like animals. Animals have these incredible instincts to know where things are. They'll figure things out, and they've got senses far beyond the physical to help them understand what is around them. And we had that, but once we developed a forebrain, this hindbrain, this ancient animal brain shrank. It's basically at the base of the spine, and we had no use for it, and it went dormant. So to give you an example of the fact that we still have it, whenever you've got a gut instinct and you feel that you should be doing something, that gut, it's like, well, I feel I should be doing X, Y, Z. That is your intuition. Intuition is a non-physical sense. It's something you're picking up. You know you should be doing something. You don't know why, and it's really quiet. And I'll guarantee you, your loud, annoying ego mind is just going to talk over it. So you'll become aware of it, and then it'll vanish. How many times have you experienced the situation where you had this gut instinct and then it just vanished because your loud mind was talking away and you're just going, forget it. The number of times I have had an intuitive inkling, when awareness of, maybe I should be taking an umbrella, and I'm like, forget it. I don't need to. Because my ego mind barges in, says, forget it. That's pointless. No reason. So I go out and I, do my day, and I come back, and it's absolutely pouring rain, and I'm soaking wet. I'm like, why didn't I listen to my intuition? So if you just do one thing, if you get one tidbit from this episode today, is one, start trying to learn to meditate, sit in meditation, just enjoy it, just for the enjoyment and relaxation of it. And two, start to pay attention to your intuition. I guarantee you're going to start to see that these intuitive experiences you have are going to start to pile up. I've got a little experiment for you. What I suggest you do is, whether you've got, take out your phone with a phone app, like a note-taking app, or maybe a piece of paper, or whatever works for you. And whenever you get some kind of intuitive feeling like, gosh, I feel I should, take a sweater to this restaurant. And of course, your ego mind's going to say, probably not. Don't worry about it. It's just one more thing to carry. Your ego mind's going to try to talk you out of it. So just write down the intuitive feeling you had, and nothing lost. And then next to that, follow up and say, okay, what was the experience? If you had listened to your intuition and actually brought the sweater, you would have not been cold. Or maybe it was, you should have brought the umbrella. You wouldn't have gotten wet. Or fill in the blank, right? So my suggestion to you is, for 30 days, write down all the intuitive hits that you receive. Any small intuitive hit, write it down on a piece of paper, write it down your phone, whatever, and just write these things down and track them. And then next to that, find out what was the result. Was the intuitive hit correct? I promise you, the vast majority of those intuitive hits are going to be 100% accurate. And if you follow them, you're going to be saying, wow, why didn't I listen to my intuition sooner? That's because the ego mind doesn't want to. Ego mind wants control. That's the way the ego mind works. So work with your intuition, work with your meditation. And, a lot of people say, I can't meditate. My mind is always active. Well, that's right. It's like saying, I can't go jogging. I run out of, oxygen too fast. I get tired too fast. Well, that's right, because you haven't been running for very long, right? It's the same idea. That's why it's called a meditation practice. It's not like you're going to sit down in meditation and the first meditation is going to be perfect. Far from it. What you need to do is just sit down in meditation with zero expectations and just sit there for the enjoyment of it and go, oh, that's nice. Find a meditation track that calls to you. Find a meditation track that resonates with you. Find a meditation track that you enjoy, that you think, hey, this is nice. I like listening to this. It doesn't have to have any specific results. It doesn't have to have any specific experiences. Just start out and, for 10 or 15 minutes, sit there and relax and go, this is nice. And if you're a morning person, do it in the morning. If you're an evening person, do it in the evening. Just carve out that tiny little bit of time, 10 or 15 minutes out of 24 hours of a day, to sit and, close your eyes and relax and listen to a meditation. And one thing I tell people is when you're in your meditation and, you're having your thoughts come up, maybe, you're like, oh, did I feed the cat today? I can't remember. Oh no, what did I do? Or did I pay that bill? Or gosh, what's going to happen in this situation? Oh no. And you start worrying. Just don't engage with the thoughts. Think of your thoughts. I tell people, think of your thoughts kind of like a subway car, right? The subway train comes into the station, it stops at the platform, doors open, people are getting on and off the train, right? You stay on the platform. Don't get on the train. Just observe it, acknowledge it, let the train leave the station. So same thing with your thoughts. Whenever a thought arises, acknowledge it, and just let it go. Just say, not right now. I'm enjoying my meditation. Because now you're in a place of peace. Now you're in a state of calm. Now you're in a state of relaxation. And wouldn't it be nice to be in a place of calm and relaxation for just 10 minutes a day? I think we all need that. That was why I was doing this episode today, because it's so needed in the chaos and the irrationality and the headbutting and the anger and the yelling and the strife that's going on a day-to-day basis. We need a little bit of calming down. Everybody needs a little bit of peace. Everybody needs just to kind of take a deep breath and chill. And I think that applies to everybody. It doesn't matter who they are. They just need 10 minutes just to kind of reset. And that's the thing. That's another way to look at it. A meditation is kind of resetting. So if you're meditating, you get to that state of being relaxed and getting to the place of just being open and quiet. When you're open and quiet, you're now, as I had mentioned earlier, able to connect with things that are beyond you. You may begin to start feeling an energy shift of some kind. Some people feel it as light tingles, like maybe kind of champagne-like effervescent bubbles kind of going up and down their arms, or like, something's happening here. I'm feeling it right now, in fact, which is telling me spirits right around me. So I know spirits' call signs for me are whenever I feel an energy shift around my upper arms. Anytime that happens, I know my spirit guides are around me. They're entering my auric field, because we all have energy fields around us called the aura. And the way spirit blends with us is they blend with our energy field, our auric field. And as they blend with our energy field, we're connecting our energy with their energy. And remember, we are not these physical beings that we think we are. Everybody says, oh yeah, we are these physical meat suits, right? But we're not. Everything in existence is just at a state of energy, a state of vibration. It's all energy, just at different vibration states, different frequencies, different oscillations. So these bodies that we think we have, if you get down to a quantum level, you'll find that it's nothing but energy. there's nothing physical there. In fact, you can say, okay, well, I'm touching my fingers. Well, guess what? No, you're not touching your fingers. There's something called electron repulsion. And since every atom has electrons essentially surrounding it, you've got these electrons and it's called electron repulsion. And electrons have the same negative charge. And if you've got two charges of the same polarity, they will never touch. It's like having two magnets of the same polarity. Let's say you've got the negative ends of magnets. Remember when you used to do this as a kid? You try to force them to touch. They would never touch. They'd bounce around. That's kind of the whole concept of maglev trains. It's magnetic levitation because they put two magnets on top of each other of the same polarity, and they will never touch. So they're gliding on this energetic air path. And that's how they just fly at like hundreds of miles an hour. But getting back to meditation, spirit will connect with your energy field, your auric field. So if you just allow it to happen, and if you don't get into the state of, I have to see it, I have to touch it, I have to know it, that's not the way spirit works. Spirit works in a way of being very soft, very subtle. So if you're feeling these subtle shifts of energy, these subtle changes, these things where you're not quite sure, it's so subtle. It's kind of like your intuition. Remember what we were talking about? It's so subtle, you got to pay attention to it. If you feel that, that's going to be spirit connecting with you. And I'm sure your ego mind is out there right now going, you don't know what you're talking about. That's not possible. That's not real. Well, I'm here to tell you it's very real. After doing this for so many years, I've unfortunately come to the realization that yes, it is real. Because remember, I came from Wall Street. I was an analyst. I couldn't be more material. I might as well have been like a scientist, because as an analyst, everything had to be proven. You couldn't take a stand or make a proposition or a recommendation or anything without knowing 110% that everything was absolutely accurate. And, people would say things and you'd be like, well, I don't believe that's true. Let's analyze this. So I had to analyze everything, make sure it was accurate, make sure it was truthful. So I was of this mindset that I had to prove everything. And I kind of grew up that way. Grew up in a very materialist household, and very agnostic, and didn't believe in anything. So when I started having these experiences, it was a real shock. It was a real opposite end of the spectrum kind of experience. So it took me a long time. I kind of came kicking and screaming into this world. But what really helped me over the threshold was quantum physics, when I started to learn about energy and the properties of energy and the whole concept that we are all energy, and that all of a sudden quantum physics started saying the exact same thing that ancient wisdom had said thousands of years ago. And they were essentially proving the existence of spirit in all of their energetic theorems. I'm like, this makes so much sense. Of course. And that's when I finally made the leap. I'm like, okay, I get it. I believe. Still, to this day, still have times where I kind of go, is that my imagination? Nah, I get it. But that's what you're going to experience. So that's why I'm saying trust your experience. Trust what you're getting. Just know that that's spirit coming to you. Your ego mind doesn't want to believe it. Your ego mind's going to say, prove it to me. Your ego mind's going to say, I got to have it in my hands. I got to see it to believe it. It's actually the other way around. You got to believe it to see it. You got to believe it to see it. Think about that. There's a great parable that Plato wrote a long time ago. It's about three men in a cave, and they grew up in this cave, chained to a wall, and they were staring at a wall their entire lives. They couldn't get out of the cave, couldn't see anything else. All they knew was what was on the wall. So everything they experienced in the cave. But one day, one of the prisoners, their chains broke and they ran and they found their way out of the cave. And they saw nature and they saw animals and they saw sunshine and trees and grass and lakes and beautiful experiences and warmth. And it was just so amazing. He's like, my gosh, I've gone to this beautiful place. This is insane. I love it. Oh my gosh. I got to go tell my friends. So he goes running back into the cave to tell his two fellow prisoners who were still locked up against the wall. And he said, oh, come. I got to tell you what I found. There's a whole world out there filled with trees and sunshine and grass and warmth and beautiful people and animals. And they're walking on four legs. And some of these are, they have tall necks, and some of them are just really huge, and some of them are so small and furry. And the other two prisoners looked at him and said, you don't know what you're talking about. You've gone crazy. We don't believe it. They didn't believe it because they hadn't had that experience. It was beyond their reality. It was beyond everything they ever knew. So for us humans living here in this little fishbowl, we've grown up experiencing everything it is to walk on the earth, this dense physical plane. So we can't wrap our minds around what's beyond this physical plane. We can't wrap our minds around a different reality, just like those prisoners. Those prisoners could not wrap their minds around a different reality outside the cave. So it's like us. We cannot wrap our minds about anything that's beyond this physical world. Our reality is the way we know it. Kind of like having a fish, right? Put a fish in a fish bowl, it just knows what's inside the fish bowl. You take that fish outside of the fish bowl, it's like, oh, wait a second, there's a whole new existence. There's a whole different reality. I'm not used to that. Because I grew up in that fish bowl. What are you doing to me? Hopefully you keep it alive, right? But the point is that know that spirit is here and just be trusting. Go back to the concept of trust and surrender. Trust that spirit's coming to you. Accept spirit coming to you. Feel the energy shift. You can go into a certain meditation that you invite your spirit guides to blend with you. Just be very loving and invite them with love, light, and truth, and only the highest good for all concerned. You can say something like that if you're concerned about what spirit might do to you. We were all raised on these Hollywood horror stories, which have just done so much damage to our minds. I mean, that was one of the things that made me hesitate in the very beginning because, I thought that at any turn there could be all these, baddies around, all these bad ghost mean people that were going to hurt me, right? I was always thinking, oh, well, look at all the bad things that happen in the movies, or all these monsters in the movies. That's what's going to happen. Hollywood has done such a disservice to our understanding of spirit. So know that spirit comes only from a place of love. And if you acknowledge that love and you connect with that love, you too will begin to connect with the love of spirit, because they're only trying to come and help us. You want to connect with your spirit guides who are always around you. We all have a primary spirit guide who came with us when we incarnated into this life. The whole concept of a spirit guide is to make sure that we are trying to stay true to our soul contract, basically the entire explicit plan, if you will, that we drew up so that we can learn lessons, have specific experiences, and achieve certain things that we wanted to achieve and learn before we ever came here. And the guide came with us to try to have us achieve that. So know that we're all with spirit guides. They're not going to be with us 24/7. They're not like peeping Toms, but they are always keeping an eye out to make sure that we are staying true to our contract. And if you call on your spirit guides, they'll be here whenever you want them. Thing is, you've got to connect with them. So invite your spirit guides to blend into your energy. Invite your spirit guides to come in and show you their love, let you feel their existence. If you say, Spirit guide, please come into my energy field, I want to feel your energy and feel your presence. And if you just relax and sit there for a while, you'll feel a very subtle energy shift. Again, all of these things are very subtle. It's not like someone's going to come over and hit you over the head with a frying pan. Just the opposite. It's going to be so subtle that it's going to be almost imperceptible. But when you have something, some kind of experience that's really, really, really subtle, and you think to yourself, did that just happen? Know that that's what Spirit's doing. Because whenever you're hearing, feeling, experiencing, sensing something that's really, 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 really subtle, but noticeable, that's Spirit. It's not going to be obvious. I mean, it's, a non-physical coming into the physical. That's going to be a very subtle thing. Another concept to be aware of is Spirit cannot interfere with our free will. So they're not going to come in and be these loud, booming voices with megaphones saying, you got to go do this and go right, and this is how you should be acting. If you experience that, that's your ego mind talking. Because Spirit is not going to come over and say, you have to go do this. Spirit's going to be your silent advisor. Going to give you a little nudge. Going to give you a little suggestion. But always leaving it up to you. So you're like saying, okay, well, here are some ideas that you might want to consider. And maybe it puts down into the desk and maybe leave it to you to find. It's like those unusual synchronicities, like, oh gosh, this book just fell out and it opened up to the page I was thinking about and it's given me the exact perfect answer. Wow, that's amazing. How did that happen? Guess what? Guess who did that? The Spirit guide giving you the answer you needed at the exact right time. They're not going to make it obvious by any stretch of the imagination. But if you just allow, invite, surrender to the experience you're having and trust that Spirit's giving you the right information and trust that Spirit's actually there working with you, working for you, then that's when you really start to have these wonderful connections. But it all can start just by getting into a state of meditation, getting into a state of quiet, getting into a state of relaxation, getting yourself out of the everyday, loud, frustrating, stressful, chaotic world that we all live in day to day. And just for 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes every day, sit in meditation and allow yourself to go on that daydream. Allow yourself to go into that place that you so rarely go. Oftentimes, Spirit connects with us when we're just falling asleep. We're in bed and we're getting more and more tired. And just before we fall asleep, that's called the hypnagogic state. Right before we fall asleep, we're just barely conscious. That's when Spirit really connects with us because we're in that altered state. We're not completely unconscious and asleep, nor are we fully conscious and awake. We're right in between, and that's an altered state. You're almost in a state that replicates some kind of trance, and that's when Spirit can really connect with you. It's almost like you're in a meditative state, right? You're in this really deep meditation. You're so out of it, like your ego is shut off completely. Your conscious mind is almost shut off. So your brain waves are so low, you're open to anything. That's the hypnagogic state. That's the daydream state. That's the state when Spirit can really connect with you. So if you're able to do that while you're meditating, that's even better. But just start at somewhere. Don't have huge expectations. Just begin to think, all right, I'm going to sit for 10 or 15 minutes and I'm going to have some relaxation, and that's all I need. And if you start that way and you find it whatever meditation track that you find that really, really resonates with you. Because the key to meditation is consistency, not duration. So what you want to be able to do is see if you can meditate every day or every other day, even for just 10 minutes. If you can meditate even for just 10 minutes every day, that consistency builds up. Think of it like you're refilling a chargeable battery, right? It's totally empty. But over time, the charge builds and builds and builds and builds and builds and builds, right? So what you're trying to do is fill your battery, if you will, with spiritual energy till you're overflowing with spiritual energy. And at some point, it's going to overflow. And that's when the circuit breaker is going to get thrown and you're going to have these experiences. And there's something in the UK, for example, where people have to sit in the power, do a sitting in the power meditation for 12 months straight. Only after they do that are they allowed to sit in spiritual circles and spiritual mediumship circles where they can connect with spirit. They're not allowed to join unless they've done that. So there's something magical about that 12-month meditation state. And that was what I wound up doing without even realizing what I was doing it. So I hope this has been helpful. Hope this has been something that, really you can really work with. If you've got any questions at all, by all means, let me know. I've got meditations out there that, maybe you might like. I've got a class coming up towards the end of March. And, if you're interested in that, take a look at it. It's going to be a free class. I'll have the notes for it at the bottom of the episode description. And again, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm so glad that you're listening to the podcast. If you like the podcast, definitely make sure that you like and subscribe. That way, you'll always be getting the episodes in your feed automatically. And we always love, hearing reviews, and definitely, subscribe to it. So that way you'll also get the newsletter, and we'll keep on giving you more sort of behind the scenes information about the podcast. So until then, this is Chris sending you love and light, and thank you so much. And hope you have a wonderful time. Bye for now.